It was supposed to be just another Saturday at Willow Creek Farmers Market. Dr. Marcus Ellison strolled through the vendor stalls, enjoying the crisp autumn air. He carried fresh produce in a reusable canvas bag and nodded politely to those he passed. But when he reached the honey stand, her eyes locked on him. Icy, calculating, already suspicious. Karen Whitmore stiffened as she clutched her designer purse. She whispered something sharp to her friend, glancing repeatedly at Marcus. Her lips curled into a smirk of certainty. Within moments, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. A black man is acting suspiciously around the parking lot, she hissed, loud enough for nearby shoppers to hear. I think he's casing cars. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Marcus froze, his heart pounding with the familiar, bitter dread. He opened his mouth, but the air felt thick with accusation. A uniformed officer approached his hand already near his holster. Sir, we've had a report. Karen watched with satisfaction as Marcus was questioned in front of everyone, humiliated without reason. But what she didn't know was that, in just hours, her smug confidence would turn to shock. Under the hospital's bright surgical lights, the questions came fast, sharp, and loud. Do you have identification on you? Marcus handed over his wallet calmly, though his breath caught in his chest. The officer flipped through his driver's license with visible skepticism. What are you doing here? I'm buying produce, Marcus answered softly, but his words felt small against the murmurs swelling around him. Karen crossed her arms, watching with smug satisfaction. Her friend tried to whisper something, but Karen only shook her head. They always look so polite until they're not, she said under her breath. The officer's radio crackled, but he ignored it. Mind if I check your bag? Marcus hesitated, not because he feared anything inside, but because he knew compliance never guaranteed safety. Slowly, he opened the canvas tote, revealing nothing but apples, greens, and a jar of local honey. The officer's expression didn't soften. Karen snorted. They're clever, she said to her friend. They know how to hide things. The weight of 100 stares bore down on Marcus. Children clutched their parents' hands. Vendors pretended to rearrange items, their eyes flickering with discomfort and judgment. I need you to step aside, the officer ordered. Marcus exhaled slowly. He knew what was next. He was led toward the police cruiser. Not handcuffed, not yet, but paraded like a warning. Karen watched eagerly, but her moment of triumph soured slightly when an older woman in line muttered, "This feels wrong." Karen spun on her heel. "You don't know him?" "No," the woman said softly. "But I know what this is." Karen ignored her, arms crossed tight across her chest. At the cruiser, Marcus' phone vibrated in his pocket. He asked permission to answer, and the officer begrudgingly nodded. It was the hospital's surgical coordinator. "Dr. Ellison," she said urgently. "We need you here immediately. The mayor's bypass is scheduled for this afternoon, and his vitals are showing irregularities. They're asking for you by name." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, the irony cruel. "I'll be there," he said. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and looked at the officer. "I need to leave now." The officer raised a brow. "And why's that?" "I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I have an emergency procedure in 2 hours." The officer's smirk was identical to Karen's. "Sure you are," he said. Marcus' stomach twisted. Across the lot, the murmurs had changed tone. A few shoppers whispered among themselves. Someone pulled out their phone and began filming. Karen finally noticed. Her face hardened. "Don't turn this into something it's not." She barked at the onlookers. But the tide was shifting. The older woman from before stepped forward. "What if he's telling the truth?" Karen spun, her voice rising. "Why do you think I called the police? People like that." The woman cut her off. "People like what?" Karen faltered. The officer's radio crackled again. "This time," he answered, a dispatcher's voice came through. "Mayor Patterson's security detail just called. They're trying to reach Dr. Marcus Ellison. High priority." The officer paled. Marcus met his eyes evenly. I told you. The silence was suffocating. Karen's mouth opened, then closed again, her face flushed an angry red. The officer cleared his throat, suddenly awkward. You're free to go, sir. But Marcus didn't move. He looked slowly toward Karen. The moment stretched, brittle and trembling. Then, with all eyes on them, Marcus turned and walked away. He didn't need revenge. Reality would handle that. Because in less than 2 hours, Karen Whitmore would sit in the hospital waiting room, watching that same black man, the one she'd humiliated, perform surgery on the most powerful figure in their city. And she would have nowhere to hide. The hospital's automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. Inside, a rush of sterile air met Marcus as he strode purposefully through the corridors. Nurses and orderlies gave polite nods, but their eyes were focused and respectful. He was not just a colleague here. He was the surgeon they called when the stakes were impossibly high. In the waiting lounge, Karen Whitmore sat stiffly in a taut armchair, her fingers clenching the straps of her designer purse until her knuckles turned white. Her husband, Councilman Richard Whitmore, sat beside her, nervously bouncing his knee. They said he's the best, he whispered. Karen didn't respond. Her throat was dry. Mayor Patterson's heart monitor beeped steadily behind the surgical glass. His wife sat nearby, praying quietly. The double doors swung open, and the head nurse announced, Dr. Marcus Ellison will be leading the procedure. Karen's head jerked up. Marcus entered in full surgical scrubs, mask pulled down, exposing his composed, steady expression. His eyes briefly met Karen's. Recognition hit her like a blow to the chest. Her mouth parted in disbelief. He didn't smirk, didn't gloat. He simply addressed the mayor's family with calm professionalism, explaining the procedure, its risks and its importance. Karen's face paled. She couldn't look away. Richard leaned toward her. Honey, isn't that? She cut him off with a sharp whisper. Don't. Marcus finished his explanation and nodded to the team. They disappeared behind the surgical doors. Karen sat frozen, her heart pounding in her ears louder than any monitor. Minutes passed, then hours. Every second dragged. Her humiliation simmered, thick and suffocating. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe he didn't recognize her. Maybe he didn't care. But deep down, Karen knew. He remembered. And the weight of her smallness pressed on her chest, suffocating. An hour in, the doors opened. The head nurse approached. The surgery is progressing well, she announced. Dr. Ellison is remarkable. The mayor's family exhaled in relief. Karen sank lower into her seat. She couldn't leave, not without raising suspicion, not without admitting to herself, and perhaps to Richard, what she had done. Her husband looked at her quizzically. You all right? She nodded stiffly. Another hour passed. Then, the doors opened again. Dr. Ellison emerged, mask off, his forehead damp but his expression serene. He addressed the mayor's family. Surgery was successful, he said softly. The bypass went smoothly. He's stable and in recovery. The cheers of relief filled the room. The mayor's wife burst into tears and embraced Marcus. The weight of the moment crashed down on Karen. This man, the man she had humiliated in public, had just saved the life of the most important figure in their city. Mayor Patterson's security detail shook Marcus' hand. Councilman Whitmore stepped forward. Dr. Ellison, you have our deepest gratitude. Marcus nodded. Karen rose, her legs unsteady. Their eyes met once more. For the first time in her life, Karen had nothing to say, no quick retort, no sarcastic smirk. Only silence. Marcus spoke first. Not to her, but to the room. I'd like to extend my thanks to the entire staff, he said, his voice steady. It takes a team. He turned and began to walk away. Karen's breath hitched. She opened her mouth. Dr. Ellison. He stopped but didn't turn around. Her voice cracked. The guy didn't know. Now he turned. His eyes, calm, piercing, held hers. You didn't want to know. The words landed with a weight that left the room breathless. Karen swallowed, her cheeks burning. before she could respond. Marcus was already gone, his footsteps echoing down the polished corridor. Councilman Whitmore turned to her slowly, his brow furrowed. What was that about? A Karen couldn't answer. Because no answer could fix what had already been exposed. And she knew the true thing. In trying to humiliate a stranger, she had only humiliated herself. In front of the entire city. The headlines broke before dawn. Local surgeon saves mayor. Was racially profiled hours before procedure. Photos and videos flooded social media. Marcus standing calmly at the market, an officer questioning him unnecessarily. Karen's face twisted in self-righteous indignation. Screenshots of the dispatcher's call, confirming they were urgently searching for Dr. Marcus Ellison. Circulated with captions dripping with outrage. Karen awoke to dozens of notifications. Her phone vibrated relentlessly. The first text came from Richard. We need to talk. Now. The second from her sister. Caring, what did you do? Her stomach lurched. She bolted out of bed and turned on the television. Every major channel covered it. Mayor Patterson himself gave a statement from his hospital bed. I owe my life to Dr. Ellison. He is not just an extraordinary surgeon. He is a man of grace and professionalism, even in the face of disgraceful treatment. Our city will do better. Karen's knees buckled. She sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. Outside, reporters gathered on her front lawn. She drew the curtains, but the flashing cameras penetrated through the fabric. The phone rang again. Richard. She answered with a whisper. Richard, I. His voice was cold. Do you have any idea what you've done? The mayor's team wants to distance themselves from us. I'm losing committee appointments. There's talk of a formal censure. She couldn't breathe. Richard, I didn't know. Exactly, he snapped. You didn't know, because you didn't care to know. He hung up. Karen sat frozen. The doorbell rang. She peeked through the blinds. Reporters, cameras, microphones. Her heart pounded. She stayed silent, praying they'd leave. But the damage was done. Online, the outrage grew fiercer by the hour. Old tweets of her surfaced. Snide remarks, dismissive comments. By midday, hashtags trended worldwide. Ellison deserves better. Karen Whitmore resign. Racism exposed city council members issued public statements, distancing themselves from the Whitmores. Richard returned home, face grim. He didn't speak to her. Instead, he went straight to his study, slamming the door behind him. Karen sank to the floor, sobbing. For the first time, she felt powerless. The control she once wielded so confidently evaporated. No carefully crafted apology could fix this. No spin could bury the truth. At that same moment, across town, Marcus sat quietly in his office. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages of support, offers for interviews, invitations to speak at national conferences. He declined them all. He wasn't interested in spectacle. He wanted peace. His assistant knocked gently. The mayor's press secretary is online too, he answered. Dr. Ellison, the woman said warmly. The mayor would like to extend a personal invitation for dinner with his family when you're ready. Marcus smiled faintly. Tell him I'd be honored. The call ended. He leaned back, staring out the window. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need headlines. He had his dignity. And the world had finally seen what prejudice looked like when stripped bare in daylight. 2 weeks later, the city council chamber was packed. Reporters filled every seat. Cameras rolled. Karen sat alone at the front, her face pale, eyes downcast. The mayor entered slowly, supported by a cane, the scars from surgery still visible but healing. He took his seat and nodded to the council president. The hearing began. Councilwoman Karen Whitmore, the president announced. You are here in response to multiple public complaints and a formal ethics review following your conduct. Karen's hands trembled in her lap. We have reviewed footage and statements. Your actions have brought embarrassment to this council and this city. She lifted her eyes briefly, scanning the chamber. All she found was disappointment. The mayor spoke next. His voice was calm, deliberate. Racism, he said, is not always shouted. Often, It whispers in moments when people believe they are superior. But dignity is louder. He turned his gaze directly on Karen. I stand here today because a man you dismissed saved my life. You will not escape accountability. The council president continued. Effective immediately. You are stripped of all committee appointments and formally censured. Furthermore, we are opening discussions for your resignation. The gavel struck once. Karen's heart sank. She gathered her papers, her breath shallow. As she exited the chamber, a crowd awaited. Flashes from cameras blinded her. Questions shouted. Karen, do you regret your actions? Do you have anything to say to Dr. Ellison? She said nothing. She couldn't. Marcus, watching from a private feed, closed his laptop softly. He didn't need her apology. The world had witnessed. And that was enough.